Well, good morning, BookTube. Bill Ruttenberg here with the Ruttenberg Library. Wanted to come to you today with a book tag. Recently, I think it was actually last week, Jim over at Jim's Books, Reading, and Stuff did one of his famous alphabet tags, and he is now he's on Q, but so I'm behind a week, but this is the R tag, and Jim tagged me, being the Ruttenberg Library. Jim did tag me in this, and so I wanted to do this tag, and I'll leave the link to his video down below in the description. Thank you for tagging me, Jim. Before I get started, I actually wanted to throw something in right fast. I did get a new book this weekend, and it's a biography on Roosevelt, and since it was the R tag, I thought I'd throw that in there. But I picked that up from Books Revisited, or my wife picked it up for me. FDR by Gene Edward Smith, and so I'm really excited. I heard really good things about this book, but I thought I'd show it off since R Roosevelt. Plus, I didn't want to do a one book haul. So anyway, the R tag. So let's go ahead and get started here. The first prompt is R is for reading. Why do you love reading? This question, I feel like I've answered this question or something very close to it in several of my recent tags, but there's just a lot of reasons that I love reading. I've told you in earlier videos how that was for me when I was little, it was very important. I would almost consider it part of my survival as a young person, and got me through a lot of chaos. And I like it now as an adult just because it's calming. It is soothing for me. It is relatively cheap because I don't buy new books very often. It's mainly used books. So you're talking about hours and hours of entertainment. So like take that FDR book, I only paid $3 for it. And so that's going to be hours and hours of entertainment for me. And so it's a cheap entertainment. I'm a teacher. So naturally, as a teacher, I'm all about creating lifelong learners as far as my students go. And for me, I want to practice what I preach. I want to be a lifelong learner. I'm constantly learning about history, which is what I teach. I teach social studies, and history is a big part of that. And so I'm always constantly trying to add to my repertoire of stories I could tell to the kids, examples about, just different things in history and how they correlate. So reading is definitely my way of doing that. It also is my way of showing the kids there are things out there that can be equalizers. When you talk about one of our things in social studies that we talk about is, throughout the world, the haves and have-nots, and just that constant battle of rich versus poor. I think it's all over the world. And so for me, I think that reading is a definite equalizer in that respect, because you can go to your public library and get a free library card and learn just as much as the next person for absolutely free. It's just a matter of getting to the library. And I think across the United States, for the most part, there are enough libraries across the United States to be an overall equalizer as far as education goes. Now, granted, I do realize that does not get you the little piece of paper. You do need a little money to do that. But if you're just talking brain power and just straight up learning, definitely, reading and libraries, that can definitely be an equalizer. And that is one of the things that I really love about reading. Puts me on a equal playing field with everyone else. The next prompt was R is for Russia. Who is your favorite Russian writer? Now, I got to be honest. In my reading library, I don't have a ton of foreign authors. I mean, very, very few. And I can't think of any Russian authors. Maybe I have one and I just don't realize it, but I couldn't think of any. I Googled it, and all of the Russian writers that came up, I had not read. And I know there's a couple pretty famous ones out there, but, as I've told you before, books that are like this, they can be intimidating from time to time. And I have not tried, like Leo Tolstoy's War and Peace. I really want to. It is on my hit list. I haven't got up the gumption to do it yet, but I do plan on doing that. I just haven't yet. So for right at the moment, I think that my favorite Russian writer, without ever reading any Russian writers, might be Vasily Grossman's books on Russia or the Soviet Union when they were in wartime. And I've heard a lot of good things on those works, and those books are not absolutely huge like A War and Peace. They are more manageable. And so I think that is maybe the one the one that I am most interested in first, just because it'll be something a little bit more manageable. All right, so R is for romance. What is your favorite romantic novel? Now, BookTube, I don't read romance novels per se, but if I had to choose one that was maybe the closest to being romance, maybe Nicholas Sparks. I do have a couple of his books that I do like. I really like Dear John, and I like The Notebook. And I know those really aren't romance. They're more just straight up fiction. But that's the closest I've read to romance, and I do like those. So yeah, let's go ahead and move on. So R is for Renoir. Do you have a favorite Renoir painting? You can substitute Renoir for Rembrandt if you prefer the Dutchman. So I do like Renoir's style. I guess I need to put this out there that I'm not a art critic. I don't know. I know if I like it when I see it, and I know if I don't like it when I see it. And I do have an opinion on what is art and what is not art, and it differs from professional art critics. And I think Steve Donahue's talked about this a few times on his videos, and I totally agree. Paint splatters. Taking a paintbrush, dipping it in paint, and splattering it across a painting. That is not art. That is something that the average person can do. There is no talent required there. I could do that, and I am not an artist by any means. I also think that like abstract art or abstract like sculptures and stuff, I don't think that is art, but that is just me. I know I could probably catch a lot of heck for that, but I don't find that to be art. There's not a lot of skill involved. And so anyway, getting back to the question, Renoir. Now I am familiar with a couple of these painters because my wife was an art history major for a while. And she actually had wanted to go to Italy to work on fixing the old paintings in the big Gothic cathedrals and stuff like that. And that was always her dream when she was younger. And so we used to have, before she got on her clean out everything, every nook and cranny around the house, before she got on, excuse me, that kick, we had art books all over the place, the big coffee table books. We had those all over the place, and she took me when we first got married. Me being the young man in love, I was willing to let her drag me everywhere, and so I went to a couple of art museums, and we went to one in Omaha, and we saw funny story. My father-in-law went with us, and he got real excited when we were in the art museum in Omaha, and he's, Amber, come here, quick, look, it's a Monet. And we're like, Monet, what are you talking about? And we get over there, and it's a pretty famous Monet, and we start laughing, and we have to try to shush him before he embarrasses the entire family. But he was just trying to go with the flow of everything, be excited about everything for my wife, and so Monet was Monet. And anyway, we did come across some Renoirs at some of the art museums that we've been to, and I like Renoir. It's very colorful. It's kind of bright, and just a painting you can look at, and it makes you feel good. The one that when I was looking online, because I just did a quick Google search, because I am by no means an art professional here. I like the one that was called the SKIFF. It was located at the National Gallery in London, but it was just a couple people out on a boat in the middle of what looked to be a pond or a big lake. Maybe it was a river. I did find that painting had two different names, but the SKIFF is what I'm going with. So I really liked that. It was really colorful. And then for the second half of the question, you can replace it with Rembrandt. Well, I do have an appreciation for Rembrandt also. Although looking at Rembrandt's paintings does not make me, when you talk about how a painting makes you feel, it does not make me feel happy because all his work, a lot of it is real dark. And he likes to use the light and dark contrasts, and he only lights up the most important part of the picture, and everything else is pretty dark. And so, just when you look at it, it's almost a depressed feeling. I was talking to my wife about this too, and she said the same thing. But I was looking at some of the paintings of his, and I found one called The Storm on the Sea of Galilee, and it looked really, really cool. And I really liked that one. So Jim, I'm gonna use both painters for you. I'll give you a couple examples there, and I'll try to remember to put the picture up in the a little picture right up here in the window. The next question for this R tag is, R is for Regency. Do you have a favorite book written in the Regency period, 1811 to 1820, other than by Jane Austen? I know you're wanting fiction type books, and I was trying to think of one in specific, and I was trying to go through my books behind me, and I literally could not find any. I looked it up online, couldn't find any that I recognized other than the Jane Austen stuff, and I haven't even read the Jane Austen stuff, so that wouldn't have helped me anyway. But so I don't have one for this prompt, so I'm going to go ahead and skip it and move ahead. R is for a Roman a Clef. Tell us about a Roman a Clef you like. Got to be honest, BookTube, I had no idea what a Roman a Clef was. I'd never heard of that before. But so I looked it up on Google, and it said a novel in which real people or events appear with invented names. And so I was like, oh, okay, I understand that. I just hadn't heard the term before. And so I Googled it for examples, and I was flipping through the books, and the one that stood out the most was All Quiet on the Western Front. I have read that. I like that book. It comes from the German point of view during World War I, and it is it's not the type of novel that is really, rah-rah-ree for war. It's more of the negative side of having to go to war and the people who did not want to go necessarily. Or they started out excited and then ended the war, and they were ready to end the war. But anyway, All Quiet on the Western Front. And I use that with my 7th grade class when we go over World War I. And we watched the old 1970, I think it's 79, 78 or 79. I think it's 79 movie, because we like that movie. And every kid that's come through my class that's seen it has absolutely loved it. And of course, they always freak out at the end of the movie, like, are you kidding me? It can't end that way. And it's always fun to watch their reaction. But that one came up under Roman a Clef example. So that's the one I'm going to use. Next prompt is R is for Rustaveli. And hopefully I'm saying that right. The most revered Georgian writer. Have you heard of him? I have never heard of him. So that's a quick prompt. I'll move on. The last prompt is a little different. Imagine you are isolated in a log cabin with no internet and no Kindle. In the cabin, there are books by the following writers, beginning with R. Racine, Kathy Reichs, Anne Rice, Ian Rankin, Ruth Rendell, Arundhati Roy, hopefully I said that right, J.K. Rowling, and Salman Rushdie. And again, my knowledge of books that are foreign or by other authors is very, very limited. So please forgive me on this. So whose books would you read first and whose would you leave to last? You can also rank the authors if you wish so by your personal preference. And honestly, the only one in the bunch that I have actually read is J.K. Rowling. And I read the first 3 Harry Potter books. And I did that years ago when Harry Potter was the thing with the middle school kids. And the only reason I read them was because the kids were reading them. And they were okay for me. I don't like that genre. And or I don't like it that much anyway. And so they were okay. They were pretty fast paced. But I kind of found, I got to I think the third book, and the story was kind of repeating itself a little bit. I mean, with some changes here and there, but it was kind of the same concept over and over. And so it didn't really do anything for me. And if I've got that totally wrong with Harry Potter, I know there's a lot of fans out there. Don't slaughter me on this one, but that's just how I felt. It was okay. I mean, nothing wrong with it. I was glad kids were reading, but for me, it's probably something I want to go back to at some time, just to say I've read the whole series and then just read all through them. So I might put that one at the top just because of that. Or I might put Anne Rice. That's the other author in this bunch that I'm familiar with. She did some vampire books. Interview with a Vampire was a pretty famous movie when I was younger, and I enjoyed the movie. It was kind of dark, but good, and so I'd really kind of like to read that book. And I know I believe she's got some other ones. As far as the other authors go, though, I don't know that I recognize Ruth Rendell, maybe just because I've heard it, never because I've read anything, but I think maybe I've heard it on BookTube before. So you can mismatch all of those all you want. I don't care. I'll read them. I'll try them. I am not familiar with them. So anyway, there were some bonus prompts on here, and the first bonus prompt was R is for robot. Do you have a favorite book about robots? And I don't read a lot about robots, and I was honestly having troubles thinking of just examples in general. There's probably a few I'm not thinking of, but the one that popped out in my head right off the get-go was by Michael Crichton. It was Prey, and it was all about some scientists making nanobot technology, teeny tiny robots that could fly around and do all kinds of stuff. And I thought that was a pretty cool book. Yeah, go check that out. That was neat. Second bonus prompt was R is for rhyme. Do you have a favorite nursery rhyme? Now, I'm the father of two young ladies. One just graduated, the other one just started preschool, and so I'm very familiar with nursery rhymes. We've read tons and tons of them. I wasn't sure if I actually had a favorite until last night, and my daughter and I, my 4-year-old and I, were reading Animal Crackers by Jane Dyer, and it's a delectable collection of pictures, poems, lullabies for the very young, and it has some nursery rhymes in it. And we were reading what happened to be her favorite, and that's the one I'm gonna pick. Here it is, and it is Hey Diddle Diddle, the cat and the fiddle. The cow jumped over the moon. The little dog laughed to see such sport, and the dish ran away with the spoon. And so that's the one I'm gonna pick. I actually had my daughter, I recorded my daughter. She didn't realize I was recording, or else she would have tried to hog the camera. But I recorded her saying it because we were reading through this, and she wanted to keep going back because she thinks that's a pretty funny nursery rhyme. And so I recorded it. I'll try to put it into the video here.
Hey Diddle Diddle, the cat and the fiddle. The cow jumped over the moon. The little dog laughed to see him at sport. And the dish ran away with the spoon. All
right, so R is for ranking. How would you rank the books you have read this year? Best, second best, worst. Now, I'm not at the end of the year, obviously, but so far I was going through the whole list of books that I have been able to read, and I picked out 4 nonfiction, 3 fiction, and then I've got the worst. So I know that's a few more than what he was wanting, but I don't think Jim would probably mind. I picked Our Team by Luke Eplin, and that was a nonfiction book about the Cleveland Indians and talking about, Satchel Paige. It was talking about, and then their center fielder. Oh my goodness, I go to do this and then I forget. Anyway, I was talking about the center fielder was the second African-American, first African-American in the American League to join the Major League Baseball. And, of course, Satchel Paige soon followed later in the season. And then I'm hoping it's going to pop in my head. But anyway, he was talking about the relationship of those two, and then the Iowa pitcher. That's embarrassing. The Iowa pitcher, and then the owner of the club, and how their relationship back and forth, and then their drive towards winning the pennant. That was a really good book. I liked that. I read a very short biography on Abraham Lincoln by George McGovern that I thought was really good. It was really short, like 150 pages or something like that. And he did an excellent job with an overview of Lincoln's life. It's from the American Presidents series, which Arthur Schlesinger Jr. was the main editor. And I just thought it was really good. The book Wait Till Next Year, which is a memoir of Doris Kearns Goodwin and her life, following baseball in the very late 40s and into the 1950s, as she was following her beloved Brooklyn Dodgers trying to win the World Series. And she put the memoir together based on those seasons, and then she tells about her life in between, and it was really, really good. Very fast read. I highly recommend it if you like memoirs, if you like baseball, if you like Doris Kearns Goodwin. She is a excellent author. One of my favorites. One of them that I read recently was Lincoln at Cooper Union, and it was by Harold Holzer. And just as Steve Donahue says, he's got, money in the bank, the bank of Steve. Well, Harold Holzer's got money in the bank of Ruttenberg, and he is just an awesome author, and I would probably read just about anything by him. And this is basically the story of Abraham Lincoln when he went to Cooper Union and spoke for the Cooper Institute, and that was in New York City. And this is the speech that the 1858 debates with Stephen Douglas really started making him a national candidate or a national figure. The speech at Cooper Union made him not just a national figure, but a national. The speech at Cooper Union made him a national candidate, not just a national figure, but a national candidate for the presidency in 1860. And really, you could argue that speech won him. You could put up an argument, such as Harold Holzer does, that speech won him the presidency, or at least won him the Republican nomination. How about we say that? For fiction books that I've read this year so far in 2021, The Great Alone by Kristen Hanna. Awesome book about a family that moves up to Alaska. The dad is a Vietnam vet who suffers from PTSD, a lot of anger issues and other stuff. The book is told through the mind of the little girl, and she has to live through a very bad childhood as far as how she was treated and all of that kind of stuff. It was a little odd, and a lot of it goes back to that PTSD that the dad suffered. Fall of Giants by Ken Follett. It was a big old tomb of a book, doorstop, and it was awesome. It was all set in the World War I time period, and it followed a series of families through this period and how they intertwined and reacted with one another. I am going to get to book 2 here pretty soon. I'm trying to read some other stuff before I get to it. But it was awesome. And then recently, last night, I'm going to put a little plug in for this one. Last night I read it this weekend, The Boy in the Striped Pajamas, which you would think as a middle school social studies teacher, I would have read that because it's a pretty famous middle grade book, but I had not read that one yet. And I read that, and I think after I kind of step back from that book and I mull that over more and more, I think it's going to be much like The Time Machine was for me last year, where it's going to start rising up the ranks as a pretty good book. Very interesting. If you don't know anything about it, it's a novel set in World War II, and the main character, his dad's a commandant at Auschwitz, and the boy meets call him an inmate in the concentration camp, a Jewish boy in the concentration camp, and they form a relationship, and yeah, it's all about that. Very sad book. And then those are my best books of the year so far. Of course, remember there's 3 months left, but those are the best so far. The worst, sorry guys, it's still on the list as the worst book I've read, and that's The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. Did not like that book. I'm not going to go into it because if you follow my channel, you know that I just don't like that book. And the more I step further from it, further away from it, the more I don't like it. Anyway, maybe a reread someday just to see if my mind changes, but I doubt it. It was not good. So anyway, those are my books of the year so far. That's what I'm gonna put up there. Of course, at the end of the year, I'll put like a top 10 books that I read, and there's a good chance those books I just mentioned are going to be in that video, and I'll maybe talk a little bit more about those. So anyway, BookTube, I hope you enjoyed this video. Sorry for looking down so much. I got my computer with the questions here, but thank you for watching. I hope everyone had a great weekend and getting ready to start their Monday, and hopefully this will help you start it off right. So I invite everybody to do this tag. I know Jim tagged all the R people on his list, and he tagged me, and so now I'm just going to tag everybody and making an open tag. So thank you, BookTube, for watching. I hope you have a great day and happy reading.